Hey everybody, and welcome to All In's full review discussion for Endless Ocean Luminous. Excited to get into things here. A hotly anticipated release for you, Eric. I know,
Yeah.
and there's a lot to kind of get into. It's been a long wait for this game, but if you've never joined us for an all-in
But
review discussion before,
comma space.
let's detail the ritual for the fine folks. First of all, we do not give numbered scores here on the show. We like to just kind of, have a full, in-depth discussion, give you our honest thoughts, and let you decide what you think from there. You guys are smart folks, and video games are too complicated to boil down to just a 7 out of 10 or whatever. So we're just going to give you our 100% honest thoughts and let y'all make that decision for yourselves. And you can let us know what you think. Secondly, sorry, Metacritic / OpenCritic. Sorry, you guys don't get that. Secondly, we like to break down our review discussions a couple of different ways. First of all, we're going to talk about the game's narrative. We're going to talk about the presentation. We're going to talk about the music, and then we're going to talk about the gameplay. And that is simply just for ease of talking and ease of you listening. So just kind of keeps things kind of nice and tidy for us. And that's how we do things around here, Eric.
It's how we do things around these parts. When we do reviews of games, you might even say we go really in depth into those reviews.
That's right. So let's dive into the waters, man. I'm just gonna kind of let you steer the ship here, dude, because this is kind of your baby. I know you've been really excited for this.
I have been. I've been calling for a follow-up to the Wii Endless Ocean games for quite some time. It's an incredibly niche genre. I get it, diving sim. The diving sim genre isn't really held in same regard as like Metroidvanias and RPGs and first-person shooters or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
However, I really enjoyed the original Endless Ocean back on the Wii. It was such a unique and laid back and frankly zen and cathartic like experience. And when we found out that a brand new Endless Ocean game was finally on the horizon, I started to get a little teary-eyed. But now here we are. The game's been in our hands for a couple weeks now, and not only have we had the opportunity to play it quite a bit, one of the things for this review that we wanted to be able to speak on is how these event dives were going to work within the game. So we'll be talking about that in addition to everything else going on. But I think it's just time to dive in, frankly. I'll try to refrain from making an ocean's worth of terrible puns during this review.
Yeah.
However, there is a lot to talk about. First off, as we are wont to do with every review, let's go ahead and talk about the game's narrative, because there is actually a story mode here in Endless Ocean Luminous.
Yeah, there is a story mode. It's a pretty simple, setup. It's basically just like, window dressing. It's just kind of like, hey, we're throwing you into the ocean here. You have this AI assistant named Sarah. You work for this kind of research team. There's a thing called like the world coral that you need to research fish to like gather light source from them and like heal the world coral. Is that about right?
Basically, yeah.
Yeah.
And I really don't want this review to boil down to me comparing the game to the original on the Wii. I'm going to
Sure.
try not to do that. But I've got to say, for the most part, I mean, basically everything except the final mission, the story mode essentially just exists as, a way to make the tutorial only slightly more interesting,
Yeah.
because that's essentially what the story mode is. Each of the subsequent missions introduce essentially a new element of the game to you. There's actually quite a bit when it comes to the core gameplay and the different capabilities that you have while you're on dives. And the story mode basically is just there to help you along, to get you familiarized with a lot of those mechanics. Now, bizarrely and frustratingly, the story itself has only 5 chapters.
Mm-hmm.
I remember getting to the final chapter because you actually have another weird thing about the story is the fact that you actually have to go into dives to you actually have to progress throughout the quote
It's
unquote
gated.
core
Yeah.
version of the game in order to access more story missions. They're tutorial missions gated behind core gameplay.
Yeah.
It's like, you know, go shoot some enemies so you can come back and we can tell you how to shoot enemies.
Right. Yeah, it makes no sense. Yeah.
It makes no sense. So that's actually really frustrating. But the most frustrating part of the story mode is the fact that, I mean, yes, it's threadbare. Yes, the only voiceover is from an AI character. Yes, there's not really anything interesting going on. But I really felt like when I got to the end of chapter 4, I was like, okay, cool. I'm done with the tutorial aspect of the story. And now we can properly get into the game's core narrative. And then it's like, cool, yeah, here's the final mission of the story mode to unlock next. I'm like, are you serious?
Yeah.
Like,
Just not
that's
much
it.
going on. Yeah,
No,
there's just not much to it. I mean, you know, like the setup is like, you know, it's fine. Like it's a fine enough setup, but it really is just like window dressing for, and this is, I think, going to be a common theme when I'm talking about this game, is just like I kind of had to reach a place with this game just overall when it comes to many facets of it, because when I first started playing it, I was getting really frustrated with a lot of that stuff. And I kind of just had to reach this place of understanding of like, you know, it's so clear to me that this is just like a budget game, for better or for worse, something that they just kind of put together as a, you know, as a gimme for fans of this admittedly niche series. They didn't want to spend a lot of time or money on it, you know, and it kind of shows. And like the story is, I think, just a good example of that, of just like, you know, like this is not fleshed out whatsoever. It's just kind of there. You know, I wish, because, you know, and again, I'm with you. I don't want to constantly be comparing to the original game. But the original game had like some meat on its bones, you know, like it felt like a full experience in a way that this game kind of doesn't. This game feels like it is just sort of like, you know, can we distill the Endless Ocean experience and, you know, take away any rough edge and just kind of make it like, here, this is for you. This is just sort of like put Endless Ocean in my veins, you know, basically.
Yeah. And we'll come back around to this, but yeah, ultimately, TLDR, the game is just essentially, let's remove all the fat from Endless Ocean.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, in this case, the fat was, by and large, really interesting content that people and fans of the series enjoyed from the previous games. But again, we'll get much more into that. But in regards to the narrative, yeah, you find this, it's so weird because you jump in, yes, there's this thing about the world coral dying, and they very quickly spin it into this, well, if this world coral dies, it's going to affect the local currents, it's going to affect the local ecosystems and stuff like this, which, if that happens, means that the entire world is going to be plunged into chaos. So here you are in a diving sim scanning fish and coral, and as mundane and as much of a footnote as the story is, they literally throw the "you have to save the world" trope in there.
Yeah.
And I was just like, really? Do we don't have to go that far? It's Endless Ocean, for heaven's sakes. This is not Final Fantasy. But yeah, the story mode is essentially just there as something that you can do. Honestly, I mean, I'm glad in some respects to have an additional mode at all to play in this game, but after playing through all of it, and by the way, to unlock the final story mode, you have to finish the entirety of this item you collect called the mystery board. And we'll get into the mystery challenges and everything, but very early on in the story mode, you collect this thing called the mystery board. And in order to get to the final mission, you have to finish that, which is going to take you dozens and dozens of hours.
Yeah.
And also a ton of RNG in order to finish that off. So at the end of the story mode, I felt like I got nothing out of it. It was a distraction, and I really don't even know if I would call it a nice distraction. It is
Hmm.
there. The story mode is there. However, if you play through Endless Ocean Luminous and never engage with the story mode beyond what's absolutely mandatory, I wouldn't blame you.
Basically what I did. Yeah,
Yeah.
like I pretty much just like for me I was like, this is just window dressing. Just
Yeah.
that's all this is, and I'm good, and I'll do what I have to do, and I'll move on, and this will just become, the thing that I turn on when I want to zen out or play with friends. That's basically what it
Yeah.
became.
Yeah. Which stinks because again, the series actually has a bit of a precedent for story modes having at least a little bit of thought and care put into them. So this was another piece of open quotes fat that was unfortunately trimmed for the modern era. But I don't know. I think I'm a little worn out talking about the narrative.
Yeah.
You want to get into the presentation?
Yeah, let's talk about the presentation, because I think that for me anyway, in some ways, this game, there are admittedly some things about this game that still look like they could have been on the Wii. But for the most part, like, I kind of like the way the game looks. I kind of like
Yeah.
the way the game just sort of like, I really enjoy kind of just swimming around looking at these fish. The fish models are not the most realistic things you've ever seen in your life. You're
No.
going to see some muddy textures and stuff like this. But like, I think that the game looks about as good as it needs to look.
Yeah.
I'm not disappointed by that.
Yeah. The game looks good. And yes, it does look a lot better than it did on the Wii, as much as there's some aspects of it that remind you of visuals on the Wii. But yeah, the game itself doesn't look too bad, I think. When you're swimming through, when the game's in motion and you're just gliding through the water, through these coral reefs or through the abyss or through whatever biome, you happen to find yourself in, it looks really good in motion. You see these dozens and sometimes hundreds of individual fish models swimming around without a single frame drop. I don't
Yeah,
know
it
about
runs
you,
great.
but
Yeah.
yeah. And seeing all of that, and with just the sheer volume of species that the game has, there are many aspects of the presentation, not 100%, but there are many aspects of the presentation that really give the sense of this real living, breathing underwater world that you're swimming through. And that means something. That has an effect. And that's a big part of the experience for Endless Ocean Luminous.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it runs, pretty much flawlessly. I never really had any like frame rate issues at all. Even like playing online, like I was remarking to you, like when we were playing, it was you, me, and Adam, and we were playing online, and like I was able to just kind of warp to you guys pretty much instantaneously. Like
Yeah.
the game basically loads its entire map in, and you're just kind of in there, And I really like kind of the little, you get to know the map in a certain way, or some of the things that you can see on the map. You get to know like the sort of kelp forest area, the sunken ship area, some of the cave structures, and like there's enough there. There's enough kind of variety. You feel like there's like fun little things to explore all over the place. I like the little nooks and crannies. I liked, I don't know, it was a fun world to kind of like dive around and explore. And when the game structure is set up as it is, like it had better be fun to explore. It had better be good to look at, because you, like you kind of alluded to, progression in the game is the way it is, and you have to do a lot of it,
Yeah.
So yeah, I think this is an area in which the game succeeds.
Yeah. I mean, there are a lot of the unlockables and collectibles within the game are also cosmetic options.
Yes.
That you can use and get, as you continue to rank up through the game, and as you continue to unlock achievements, because there are achievements in the game, you will continue to unlock more and more customizable options. You can unlock new colors for your diving outfit, new emotes, and it's all of these things that you would expect from a very community focused game, of which this certainly was intended to be. So there's a lot of stickers and a lot of customizable options, and all of that's fun and all of that's fine. And I'm glad that they're in there. I'm glad that there's something that you can get for the progression, and you're able to feel some sense of accomplishment with all of this stuff that you're acquiring as you continue to rank up and as you continue to kind of almost arbitrarily make money on these dives. But there is a lot of cosmetic options available within the game. I will say, specifically, one aspect of the maps does really, really break immersion, and that is the fact that these maps, while randomly generated every time you jump into a new one, are very obviously gridded out. There are different sections that occupy very specific, very rigid grid squares. And when you get to those boundaries of the areas, and they are just so very clearly marked with
Yeah.
these underwater boundaries, it can, like, that's very much like your video game is showing.
Right. They're not masking it at all. Right.
No, not
Yeah.
at all. And that is a little frustrating considering how immersive the rest of the game looks. There are moments when I feel like I'm just swimming through this coral gate and there are dozens of fish in there, and it's just this beautiful moment. And I get reminded of the way I felt when I played the original game, and then I go through that gate, and then there's just that very obvious barrier drop off into the next biome of the map. So there's a lot about the game visually that I like, and the fact that there are nearly 600, just in the initial setup. We don't know if there's going to be DLC or additions or new content to this game. In the initial vanilla version of Endless Ocean Luminous, there are almost 600 different creatures to tag, and for the most part, the models look good. They are not stylized in any way, shape, or form. They are going for a relatively photorealistic look. They're trying to be true to the way they look in real life. Unfortunately, whenever you go for photorealism, that's a style that does not age very well. And because this is already on the Nintendo Switch, you do have to kind of take it for what it is. This is... I'd be lying if I said I didn't wonder what this game could have looked like on something like a PlayStation 5 or an Xbox Series X. But
Sure.
again, ultimately, I did still... The presentation I thought was good enough and didn't take away my enjoyment of the game. I did think that was a very well executed aspect of the game in many respects, although the few frustrations, the few notes and criticisms that I have, I've already talked about.
Yeah, and I will say too, I mean, it's really cool because all of those, like you said, nearly 600 fish, all individually rendered, all kind of have their own like animation set. All of them have like fun facts that you can have Sarah
genuinely
like read out.
Entertaining and very informative, just like Coral was.
Yeah.
If you if you can pick any fish in the encyclopedia, and there's a couple passages of edutainment, of educational and informative dialogue that Sarah will just rattle off, and you're like, huh, that's a fun fact.
Yeah.
And it is cool because it's not just, because all the different biomes are represented, you get to see stuff from like modern day, freshwater, saltwater, prehistoric, even, and even iceborne. So it runs the gamut.
Yeah, and so it's really kind of like if you kind of treat this game as effectively like a little interactive digital aquarium, it's kind of fun for what that is. And I will say, like, my favorite thing about the presentation is taking pictures. Like, I love taking pictures of the fish. I love adding them to my little, logbook. Our Discord community, there's a bunch of people playing this game and sharing pictures and stuff in the community. I love that stuff, even though I don't think the camera works that well. Actually, it can be a little bit annoying to use the camera. It works as well as it needs to. I
don't think it's the camera so much as the fact that the subjects themselves are.
It has to lock on to the fish.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
But yeah, we have a lot of genuinely good photographers in our Discord community, and again, that just speaks to the very clear community focus, the community theme that they were going for with this game. I mean, from the very first time we saw Endless Ocean Luminous as the I guess the second of the two more things in that Nintendo Direct or back in February now.
Mm-hmm.
Like that was one of the first things they talked about. Was like go on dives with up to 30 people. They were really pushing that community aspect of it. So, because of that and because of all the different assets that are at play and all the different animations and things that need to be rendered and animated at one time, when it comes to the presentation, that's probably the biggest thing, is the fact that with all of those people, because I've taken part in some very dense community dives, and like I've said before, there are dozens, sometimes even hundreds of fish being individually animated at one time. The game does run very well. So I am glad that with this big community focus, that the budget went as far as to make sure that was true of this game, at least.
Mm-hmm. And to be honest, I'll take a game that doesn't look, like the most amazing thing you've
Yeah.
ever seen on the Switch, as long as it just runs well, you know.
You and I
So
grew up on the NES. We are not graphics.
yeah, like I'm good with that, especially when it comes to playing online. Like you
Yeah.
want to make sure that stuff all runs well. And I remember even like some of the people in the community were like concerned about that. Like, hey y'all, like report back with how well this thing even runs, because that's my big concern. And hey man, as far as that goes, it runs great.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. So well done in that regard. 2 thumbs up in the a thumb and a fin. I got a couple fins up in that
yeah,
regard.
some fins, sure, yeah.
Some fins here, maybe a few gills and scales, maybe even. But yes, the presentation of the game isn't nearly as disappointing as the narrative, at least. But going into the music, I genuinely don't even know how much there is to even say about the music. It's here,
It's fine.
and that's really I think honestly just saying that is the best way I can kind of describe it to you. I completely honestly forget that the music's even there until the new song comes in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But even just listening to it, it basically just feels like a graduating student's thesis at attempting to replicate aquatic ambience.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely, this game was always going to have a more ambient,
Of course.
soundtrack in general. It doesn't need to be super melodic or in your
No.
face. That's not the point.
No.
It just has to be kind of relaxing, zen-like, slightly scary when it needs to be. It does all of that, but it doesn't do more than that. Like it doesn't exceed expectations. It just kind of meets expectations. I couldn't tell you, a lot of times I like to shout out like special tracks or something that I enjoyed. I couldn't point out not one standout moment of music to me playing this game, but it did, like, I had a few moments playing this just on my couch handheld with nice headphones, and like the way everything kind of sounded, like the soundscape underwater when the music would kind of pick in, like some gentle piano stuff kind of coming in, like it did get me into that place of like relaxing, zen and stuff. Like it does its
Very
job.
ASMR.
Yeah, a little bit. It does its job. It just doesn't go above and beyond. It's not going to be the kind of thing that you're thinking about, at all. It's never going to stick with you. We won't be talking about it at the end of the year, but like it is completely
Probably
serviceable.
not going to show up in the All-In Discord VGM lounge.
No, but it's like it's perfectly serviceable for what it is. Like it's not bad. It's totally fine.
Yeah, it's there, and it's, I don't know, maybe it would have benefited from having some seepage.
Yeah, that sentence out of context, man.
Yeah, seepage. Going back to the beginning of the
seepage
show,
in
we were
the
talking
ocean.
about the Slayers X video and seepage being a fictional new metal band, because that's what you need when you're swimming through coral reefs. Is like Linkin Park, right? That really sets the mood. But yeah, I mean, again, there's not really much to say aside from the music. There are some decent underwater tracks. It feels like something that would play during an underwater episode of the Magic School Bus.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah, no, it's totally fine. Not really much more to say about it than that, to be honest.
Yeah. So, if my math is correct, sir, that brings us to the gameplay of Endless Ocean Luminous. And there are a few very interesting things to talk about here. One of them is the game mode. I wish I could have used more than the singular with that, but I mean, really, there is just kind of one way to play, and you can do it by yourself. You can do it with friends, or you can do it as part of the event dives. But the way essentially that you play Endless Ocean is you jump into these pseudo randomly generated maps, and you essentially just explore. The entire point of the game is to just get in, dive down, and just explore. These environments were made specifically to, just kind of like when I played the original Endless Ocean. It was an incredibly cathartic, zen, laid-back experience meant to, I guess, be kind of a counterpoint to a lot of the much more intense action adventure games of the day. A way for you to, just even yourself out, maybe after a long day at work. And one of the first real cozy games that I remember playing
Sure. Yeah.
ever. And that's what this is. This is very much like a cozy style game. You can't take damage. There's no combat. It is just a really pretty or serviceably pretty exploration game where it tasks you to find, you check off different boxes, looking for certain things, and cataloging the different species and finding all the different loot and salvage that you can find. But yeah, go forth, my son. Go explore that coral reef. Go explore that forest of weeds. Go explore that frozen tundra area. Go explore the depths. Go enjoy yourself, essentially.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're a diver. You can use. It is kind of interesting the way the game kind of lays out the controls, because you sort of have like your like scanning abilities on the left side of the controller and like your movement
Yes.
abilities on the right. So the R button makes you go up, ZR makes you go down. You're kind of like moving, you're swimming. You can press the B button to do kind of a dolphin kick, get a little bit of extra speed. Because this is Endless Ocean, like Eric already said, you don't got to worry about taking damage. You don't even have to worry about the fish like eating each other or anything like that. That's not happening. You don't have to worry about oxygen, or any management, element like that. And then the left side of the controller is what you use to scan the fish. You can, kind of quick scan by sort of like pressing it, or you can like hold it to scan a bunch of fish at once, and you can press the ZL to kind of ready the camera. And that's pretty much it in terms of the controls. It's not trying to get in its own way too much. It's just trying to kind of like be easy to understand. I handed my wife the controller with basically no instruction. She picked it up right away. It's pretty no fuss.
Yeah. Well, most of the button prompts are also right there on the bottom right-hand side of the screen. If for whatever reason you ever get confused, or, just for the simple sake of somebody jumping in to the game with, sight unseen, essentially. It was like, okay, here's what you do. Here's how you play the game at a glance. But I mean, what do you actually do in this game? There are things for you to do. I talked about the mystery board that you find very early on in the game story mode. A lot of the progression that you will achieve throughout the course of the game has to do with the different mystery boxes, essentially, that you have to unlock on this mystery board. There are long story short, there are 99 quote unquote challenges that you have to finish, that you have to achieve in the game. But I say challenges, they are essentially just find the thing.
Yeah.
Or, in a few other cases, bring the thing over to another thing. Very rudimentary kind of fetch quests. And that's really it. The thing is you are completely you're completely stuck on whatever map you're on, because there's no way that you're going to be able to unlock all of them on any one map. Each of the maps that you come across are going to have several, often quite a few, that you can take care of, but especially once you get down to the final couple dozen of these mysteries that you have to solve, of these things that you have to find, you're essentially just at the mercy of the game, taking you to the right map, to the right, I guess, creation
Like
of,
variation.
yeah,
Yeah.
the variation of the underwater map that you have to explore. I mean, it does make for, a nice bunch of different checklists to check off, because there is quite a bit of variety. There is some kind of world building about this ancient civilization
Yeah.
called the Owens, and a lot of what you find is remnants of this ancient civilization. Many of the things, many of the quote unquote mysteries that you'll have to discover and encounter are ruins or special locations left by this civilization. Very often you'll come across these very heavily marked, glowing kind of mini obelisks underwater that will have a little bit of lore and a little bit of world building, tell you a little bit about the Owens. There are actual, like, Owen ancient treasure chests that you can find, and there's a lot of different things to find in the game. There's a lot of different salvage. There's actually 340 different pieces of loot and salvage that you can find when you're on these dives as well, and that makes for a nice little catalog to fill out, in addition to the almost 600 different species of fish and life forms that you can run into on your dives, which itself will take you many, many, many checks notes, many hours to finish.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, my issue with this is that, like, I just don't find any of it that interesting. Like, it's not really what I'm playing the game for, to be honest. Like, I appreciate that there is, like, progression in there, but it really is just like, hey, you're getting, like, points that turn into experience to, gain levels that unlock more tiers of cosmetics that you can purchase. And, like, that's kind of it, and then, like you said, you have to clear out the mystery board to progress in the story that we've already said is basically nothing, so, it's just like to me, the actual progression elements were nothing more than just like, just something to do while I was down there.
Yeah, and that's like, basically the only reason that they're there.
Yeah,
is just so that the game isn't completely devoid of content, right? Because this is essentially the only real way to play the game. So the game had to give us at least a couple, even lackluster created missions, just a couple blocks to check, something to do, as opposed to just, hey, swim.
I mean, but for me though, to be honest with you, I think I would have preferred that. I think I actually would have preferred nothing to, to something lackluster. I think I actually kind of would have liked, this just being like an open freeform experience, just kind of like go, and ultimately it still kind of is.
Yeah.
But
you
like,
can still engage with the game exactly like that,
and that's basically what I'm doing. But that, like, because of that, it's kind of actually like done the opposite effect for me, where like I don't feel connected to it in any real way because none of it is super interesting to me. I feel like even the stuff that you unlock, like you can unlock emotes and stickers and palettes but none of it is all that interesting to me either. So I mean, like, I basically am just engaging with the game as like a, hey, whenever I feel like it, I'll just kind of go in and mess around and scan some fish and hang out with friends. And that's fine, for what the game is. But I just, like, for me, I'm like, man, it's just, I don't know.
It could have been so much more.
Just all of that's just, it's just kind of fluff. If you're gonna do it, I wish that they would have like really went for it and done something more interesting. The first time I encountered one of those like ancient like slabs, which are like weirdly not like, they don't like follow the same rules of like lighting and shading that the rest of the game does.
Yeah, they are very obvious when you come up upon them, because just like Seth said, they don't. Kind of like when you're watching an old-timey cartoon and a part of it is colored differently. So it's like, oh, that's the part that's actually going to move.
Yeah, it's very obvious, like, kind of that you should go and look at that. The first time I saw that, I was like, oh, cool. Like, something's going on here. But really, they give you a little riddle. They kind of loosely, like, kind of point you in the direction of the type of fish they want you to bring back to it. And then you do. And you get a check on your mystery board, and that's it.
If it's not broken. I do think that there is a bug with a couple of those, by the way. The only actual missions in the game that require you to do anything are these ones that we're just talking about, where you come across this disc-shaped stone slab on the ocean floor, and it gives you this, frankly, not very creatively thought of clue, trying to tease a certain fish that I want you to find and then bring back to it. Something that you can do. Any fish that you scan, any creature that you scan, you can actually get to follow you.
Right.
Provided you have enough companion points, which you can get more of by leveling up. And obviously, like whales, sharks, and the bigger creatures are going to require that you level up quite a bit before you can do that. But you have these creatures, whatever it is, follow you back to the disc. Hopefully they don't leave randomly in the middle of the trip back, which can also happen, which is annoying. But they come back, and what's supposed to happen is you come back to the stone disc, the thing's following you, and then the event just triggers. The mystery just triggers. But I've run into an instance where, like, it pretty explicitly told me to get one fish. I did, and then it didn't trigger. And specifically, like, you and I were playing with Adam, and there was one that he brought the correct creature. I know, because I did the exact same one with the exact same creature.
Yeah.
And it didn't trigger for him. So I do wonder if there are a couple bugs out there in regards to, again, unfortunately, the only missions in the game that actually require that you do anything to complete these mysteries. So that's unfortunate.
Yeah, it seems like that might be the case. And I mean, that stuff it's there and it's fine, but the main sort of like crux of the gameplay is going to be the way that you scan and catalog and engage with these fish. And I gotta say, like, we were talking about this as we were playing online together. It was so much more meaningful in the old ones. The way that you actually could like stop and individually engage with the fish. I actually would have preferred, like, let me unlock stuff. The old games had like a sort of like hub, like your kind of like boat hub. Yeah. Like if you're unlockables, like I would have preferred that. Like give me stuff that I could like decorate my little, ship deck with or whatever, and like give me that sense of connection to what it is that I'm doing. You're finding all these items that just give you points and mystery board. That's it.
They wind up in a catalog. They wind up in a checklist. Yeah. These dives that you go on, that's the only true game mode in the game. There is no hub area to gather beforehand. There is no, shelf or collectible area outside of the main menu. The main menu essentially is the only proxy of a hub that you can get. And if you want to see all the different fish that you have cataloged, if you want to see all the different swag and salvage that you've collected, you can see it from the main menu. But there exists nothing within the game, any explorable or any environments outside of those randomly generated that you just spawn into when you're playing the game. And that creates, to me, such a sense of disconnect.
Yes.
Because coming into this, I have certain memories of the franchise, and I remember having my own aquarium that I could populate with my own fish. I remember having this big sea and having my own boat that I could actually do stuff with. And sometimes I would come back to that boat and I would have a friend, like randomly, like a penguin would show up and you could interact with the penguin, and it would be like, it'd be this whole thing. And it would actually be a part of the game. And we talk about how you can get creatures to follow you. I specifically didn't use the word befriend those creatures because it doesn't feel like that at all.
No.
However, in the original games, it did. You could actually befriend several of the dolphins that you find in the first Endless Ocean, and they will actually help you find treasure. That doesn't happen in this game. It's just, this creature is following you now. 5 minutes later, a creature has left. You'll get a notification saying that whatever was following you is gone. The only practical application for that, the only reason for that existing in the game is it is for these escort missions, is for these little fetch quests in the game. Now you can use them to take some cool pictures, but that's really it. They don't exist for any other purpose aside from that. And that was also a fairly significant letdown for me in
Mm-hmm.
regards to the gameplay, because you're trying to bring back a couple aspects of the game, and it just feels, so much of the game feels like just half-hearted implementations. Now,
Yeah.
I don't want to just sit here and rag on the game constantly. As we've already mentioned a few times before, the game is very community focused.
Mm-hmm.
And I will say, I genuinely had a lot of fun when we were able to get together, when you, me, and Adam were able to get together, when me, Adam, and Fulia were able to get together and have our dives and stuff like that. I really enjoyed that. I thought that was a lot of fun. And I really wish I could just end there. However, it astounds me that there is no way to create a private lobby in this game.
Yeah, that's wild. That makes no sense. Yeah.
The whole thing about dive with up to 30 friends, cool, let me invite all of our friends. I just assumed, because why in the world would it be otherwise? I assumed
Right.
the weekend that this game came out that we would jump in the community game lobby. I would create a lobby for All In, and we would all jump in and just explore whatever map we spawned in together. But no, whenever you play online, it's never private. There's not a single private lobby in the game. You have randos popping up and finding all the treasure and scanning all the
Mm-hmm.
fish and doing everything when you're trying to even get your bearings. And that is super annoying. That genuinely frustrates me. It's probably the thing that actually makes me mad more than anything else about this game. It blows my mind that you cannot create a private lobby in this game. Like that would be where I would get the most enjoyment out of it. It's just you, me, Adam, find our own map
Right.
with nobody else doing a bunch of stuff affecting our gameplay experience, because that can. You, me, and Adam, and the whole rest of the community jump in and have our own little map that we run around. That would have been amazing. That would have been amazing. The comparison that kept popping in my head is like, imagine setting up like an Easter egg hunt for your kids or something, and then some rando just walks in and starts picking up all the eggs.
Yeah. Yeah, and
That's
then you just have like
basically what it is.
a bunch of other kids running into your backyard picking up all
Yeah.
the eggs. Yeah. Yeah, it's weird. I don't know. I don't have a good reason, for that. And it's like it's the kind of thing that's tricky, right? When you're kind of like judging and reviewing a game like this, it's tricky because you're basically comparing it against the yardstick of like previous entries or kind of what your expectations of the game
Yeah.
were versus what the game actually is. And like that's the unfortunate thing, is that like because the core of the game is still so solid, like it's still fun to swim
Yeah.
around and scan fish. Like
I enjoy it. That
that's
gives me
fun.
that little serotonin hit. That gives
Yeah.
me that little dopamine hit. I
There are
really enjoy.
times.
I enjoy filling out that catalog. I enjoy that thrill of seeing a new fish, seeing that question mark appear over a fish when you scan it, and knowing that it's a brand new one that you haven't seen yet.
Yeah.
Uh, I really like that feeling. I enjoy the feeling of finding a new piece of salvage that I haven't found yet, and running around and seeing something interesting and going to check it out, because that's the entire experience of this game. That's what you're doing constantly. You're just running around, or rather diving, swimming around for hours, just constantly seeing, oh, what's over here. And I
Mm-hmm.
do enjoy that. But there are so many things about this game that could have made that so much more interesting and
Yeah.
so much more fun. I feel like this game is really, really held back. Um, the community aspect of it, far and away, has been the most enjoyable aspect for me. Seeing the Discord, seeing our friends and supporters, and just post a ton of pictures within the Discord and diving with them, and that's far and away been the most fun I've had with this game. And I just, I don't know. I feel like this game is a few tweaks away from being much better. I would certainly like to see more than a few tweaks, maybe throw back in a lot of that cut content, but I don't know.
Yeah, I mean the core of it is still so solid.
Yeah.
You know, like it really does still have like a little bit of that magic in there. You can still feel it in there. It's just impossible to play the game without thinking of what could have been. You know,
Yeah.
without thinking of like the missed potential. Like, man, this is solid. It could have been great though. You know,
Yeah.
and it is nice and interesting to hear people in our community who had never played Endless Ocean. Like Adam's never played it before, Fulia had never played it before, and they love it. Like
Yeah,
just
they're
as
getting really into it.
yeah, and I love to see that. I love to see people who are just like, hey man, like yeah, this is just basically like a little Zen digital aquarium, and I'm all about that. And
Yeah.
I'm happy for that. But yeah, it is hard not to play this and kind of wish that it was more than it is. I said while we were playing online the other day that this feels like Endless Ocean for the TikTok generation.
Yeah, I think that's
Um,
a really good way to put it because,
yeah.
I mean, yeah, there's really only one way to play. It is very focused on, community, and it's very focused on like that kind of social media quality to it with all
Hmm.
the filters and photos and stickers and everything like that, the emotes and the customizable dive suits and everything like that. It very much feels like a lot of, modern online multiplayer games that you see. Fortnite's an easy comparison, obviously, Fall Guys and things like that, where expressing yourself in that way is really the only thing that people need in order to unlock. Uh, However, there is one major aspect of the game that I wanted to say for kind of last, because it is a very positive aspect for me, and I wanted to
Sure.
to end more on a positive note. And that is, we've talked about a lot of the different mysteries that you can unlock, the things that you can find, the treasure chests and the obelisks and the stone discs that you have to bring specific fish back to, and these hidden away areas. But by and far and away, the most interesting mysteries of the Veiled Sea, as the game calls its setting, are this idea, or is this idea rather, of unidentified marine life. Uh, there are, again, nearly 600 different species of marine life that you can scan and interact with in this game. However, there are about a couple dozen or so that are exclusive to this game. Very fantastical
Right.
style creatures that are genuinely really cool and really interesting to find.
Hmm.
On every map of the hundreds and hundreds of different fish that you can scan, there will be a set 7 of them that once you scan, this fantastical, almost alien, almost legendary Pokemon-esque creature called a UML will appear, and it will create this special event within the map for a little while. And when it comes to like actual missions, actual things to do within the game, that really is kind of the marquee mission, the marquee thing to do within the game. And that should be I don't want to say the final goal of every map that you jump into, but that's certainly, I think, the big selling point of every map that you jump into.
Yeah, they're cute. They're always cool. They're always
Yeah.
cool to find. They're always cool to track down. They're definitely like the sort of yeah that same feeling you get when you find like a legendary Pokemon or something. Like it is that same kind of feeling to see whatever cool interesting sort of design they cooked up, if it's like a turtle with like pink coral on its shell, or like some seal with like a little hat or crown on or whatever, fun little stuff like that, always cool. They're a definite highlight. Yeah.
Yeah. UML are far and away the biggest highlight of the game for me. And a lot of them do have these very idiosyncratic quirks that are genuinely interesting to discover. The seal that you were talking about, there's actually some exclusive treasure that seal may help you gain access to in a very interesting way. So yeah, definitely go after the UMLs. really interesting, kind of fantastical creatures to find
Mm-hmm.
within this world, and a great highlight. In addition to the fact that there are big prehistoric areas of this world where you can find dinosaurs and everything like that. That's also a really cool aspect of it. So I did want to like. I did want to like. I enjoy the game. There's a lot about this game I enjoy. I just wish, in terms of the content of the game, in terms of the way to play the game, that maybe most of it hadn't been cut. But there is still a lot of really cool things to find here in this game. There's a lot of zen, cathartic, laid back discoveries to be had if you are like me and you really enjoy just checking boxes and you enjoy filling out these impossibly large catalogs of hundreds large salvage or creatures to find. I do enjoy that. I like looking at the game. And again, I haven't had a single performance issue with it. So there's a lot about the game that I do enjoy, but a lot of objective things that we absolutely can't dismiss.
Yeah. Yeah. Like I'm glad it exists. Like
Yeah.
I'm glad they made it. It's not exactly what I wanted it to be, but I'm still glad that it exists at all. And like I'm still glad that the core of Endless Ocean like is intact with it. And like there are those moments where I do zen out and I'm relaxed and I'm swimming around and I'm learning about fish, where I'm just like, yeah, like this is just kind of good. I'm kind of happy with this. We mentioned briefly the event dives. Event dives are this kind of initiative with this game where they will have sort of, not unlike what Nintendo does with like Splatfests or whatever, like just sort of like themed weekends where it's like, hey, for this weekend you can go into an event dive for, is it 20 or 30 minutes?
Well, this first event dive, we are reviewing this game after the first event dive. And for this first event dive, the dives, which are typically much longer, even these shared online dives, I think are 90 minutes or something. Solo dives are untimed. You can stay down there for literally forever. But the first event dive, and presumably all the ones after that, are just 20-minute dives. They are very quick affairs. Those 20 minutes disappear fast, especially when you are trying to uncover everything, because the map is the same size. You just have a small fraction of the time to find everything that you need to find. Which, like, the event dive is cool for several reasons. One, rare species show up that are very hard to find in regular maps. And I think even rare sizes, because in addition to finding all of the different species and all the different fish that exist within the Veiled Sea, you can also find them at various sizes as well. And you get credit for finding large or finding especially small specimens of individual fish. That actually gets categorized within your catalog as well. So, but a ton of rare species, a ton of rare sizes, I think, in addition to a much more mission focused gameplay. And it's the exact same way to play, it's just much more frantic, which I mean, that's what Endless Ocean is supposed to be, right?
Oh yeah, it's supposed to be a frantic race of quick hit dopamine and scanning as much as possible before time runs out. A very arcadey experience, Endless Ocean.
Yeah, arcadey actually is a good way to put the event dive. It did have a very arcade feel, very front focused. You're specifically trying to do something. The event dive is not about laying back. It's not about taking it easy. It's about getting in there and getting done what you need to done. Getting done what you need to get done as quickly as possible. I will say that when it comes to the multiplayer aspect of it, there are several things that the game does implement that make it a little bit more interesting to play with people and make it a little bit more easy to play with people. Like you said, you could warp to us. Whenever you find, even though you don't all spawn together, once you find a diver on a map, which you can see immediately where they are because they're continuing to unlock the map as they swim. But also because we coordinated, because it's a grid-based game. Hey, where grid screw are you at?
Yeah, it kind of creates cool moments. I kind of like that, where like, oh man, like I found this cool, fish that you don't have. I'm at 8-2, I do kind of like that.
Yeah. I do too. And you can tag most things
Mm-hmm.
with stickers or with, other, various icons in the game. So if you find a piece of treasure, you can tag that treasure. And once other people have found you, once you've encountered other divers, they can then see all of your tags that you've put down.
Mm-hmm.
So it does create some fun little community moments. Oh, and Seth, I did discover what the light lucky draw thing was.
Oh, please illuminate me.
Oh, it's so disappointing. Uh, so as you continue to do various things on these dives, you will notice like an experience bar, a light bar continuing to fill, and then once that bar is filled, you'll get a quick little kind of slot,
Little roulette.
little
Yeah.
roulette wheel that'll go down. Apparently, what that is, whatever sticker or icon comes up, you get bonus XP for every one of those icons that's been used on the dive so far.
Okay.
Yeah,
All right.
yeah, that was about my reaction too. It takes so long to do it. It was like, this has got to be significant in some way,
Yeah.
shape, or form. But no, it really doesn't do much of anything,
Wow.
really, unfortunately, which is a terrible microcosm of many of the aspects of this title. But again, yes, there's a lot of things that they did implement to make swimming, to make diving with other people more enjoyable. So
Mm-hmm.
some things that are quite disappointing, some things that are quite nice.
Yeah, I guess just in summary, like it's weird because we've been quite negative. I do like it. Like I
Yeah.
do like I have had some fun with it. And like I'm glad they made it. But it just is impossible not to want it to be so much more. I want better for you, Endless Ocean. You know?
Well, for me, it checks the same box that the original game did. I can go in, I can swim around. I really enjoy, especially a few environments of the game. I just truly
Yeah.
enjoy, slow swimming around there and not even scanning things, just taking the environment in. Very often I'm getting the same feeling that I got when I played the original Endless Ocean. However, it's very clear that this was, I mean, Nintendo could have very nearly made this a mobile game with as uh, with as bare bones as it is in many respects. It's just, I mean, there's a lot of stuff in here. There's just not a lot of stuff in here, if that makes
Yeah.
any sense.
Yeah, the ocean is a mile wide and an inch deep, you know?
There you go. That's a great way to put it. Like, but we have 600 creatures here. It's like, yeah, and only one way to really engage with any of it,
Mm-hmm.
which is nice. And I've already spent, upwards of 20 hours doing exactly that. But it's, especially when a precedent has been set more than 15 years old. Like, that was the biggest thing that I was super excited about, is like, I remember what they did with the original Endless Ocean, thinking about all of that stuff that could have been done with this new game, and so many of it just was completely forgotten about, not even considered. They wanted to focus on just a single aspect of the gameplay, hyper focus on that, and try to do as much with that as they possibly could. And admittedly, they did do a lot with that one aspect, but there are still some really disappointingly obvious things that could also have been implemented, even if that's what they wanted to do. If this game does nothing, just give us private lobbies.
Yeah.
If you do nothing else,
Yeah.
just give us private lobbies.
I hope so. We'll see. I mean, who knows? Maybe they will continue to support the game. I mean, who knows? I'll be interested to see at the very least how long they keep doing event dives.
I
Because,
will too.
those are cool enough to where it's like, oh, like there's an event dive going on. I could see myself popping in with you guys over the
Yeah.
weekend. So,
Let's jump in for a couple 20-minute event dives, take some pictures, squad goals, all that good stuff. Hey, cool, a new UML that I haven't seen before.
mhm.
Hey, a new species of fish that I haven't seen before. Neato.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, it kind of feels like that's kind of what this game is going to be for me in the long term, and that's okay. I wish it was more, but I'm okay with what it is too.
Yeah. I enjoy it, but it's my enjoyment of the game is tinged with very palpable disappointment for what it could be. And I think just at the end of the day, that is the best way that I can describe it. I enjoy it. I have fun while playing it, but it's a muted fun.
But folks, that's just been our thoughts on Endless Ocean Luminous. Let us know what you think watching the video here on YouTube. Leave us comments down below and let us know your thoughts on the game. We would love to hear from you. And of course, this has been a segment from our weekly Nintendo podcast, All in a Nintendo Podcast. We got links to that in the video description too. So yeah, let us know your thoughts on Endless Ocean Luminous. We'd love to hear from you. Like and subscribe before you head out. We would greatly appreciate it. Tune into the podcast for much more as well. For myself, for Eric, we'll see you next time.